Okay, now part two. I am in a peculiar situation that's very common to me. The tubes that you see there are my blood running into this groovy machine that pulls the water out of my body because my bladder doesn't fill up. So, hello from the dialysis clinic. Now, part two. Part two intro. I'm remembering one other young human being. That would be the daughter of Gene Clemens, also known as Mandel to most of us. Um, and like waving hello to her too. I don't even remember her name, and I never met her that I can remember. But the daughter of Gene. Yahoo. Okay, so continuing with the introduction. So my parents took this trip to Maine, and it was really special. I mean, my mom could find every $5 a night campground all over New England, and we got to go to a bunch of neat places. But my mother said, the kids have been really, really fussy on this trip, and they're a lot better behaved when they have one of their friends along with them. So next year, why don't we let them pick a person to come along with us on the trip? There's enough room in the back seat, and we can have 3 kids along with us. And my father thought that was kind of a nutty idea, but they did it. And so my sister and I got to confer among ourselves. Okay, Leslie Shiner, this person, that person, this person, and we ended up deciding Brad Kopic. Brad is the summer traveler. So we hit the road. Now my dad worked with the school system, so he was off for the summertime, and my mom was a per diem nurse, which means she can kind of fool around with her schedule. So we had a block of time, a couple of months long, that we could spend on the road. So we took a road trip in the 1959 Cadillac, right? Or was that before they got the station wagon? I'm not sure. Anyhow, one of the road trips we drove the 59 Cadillac. I think that one was with Brad. And then the next year we decided on Eric Bone. And then the year after that, Eric Bone came along again. So there were 2 long journeys all through New England for a couple of months with my close guitar playing buddy Eric Bone. And so that's like 4 summers altogether. And we had amazing experiences. I mean, I just always remember the Kankomangas Highway and diving into that remarkable clear water with the rainbow trout swimming next to our faces way down in the sparkly waters because there's mica in the bottom in the rocks, and there's like literally golden sparkles coming up from under this super clear water. And also one of those summers we got to meet up with my cousin Lynn Larson, and we did this amazing hike up the Presidential Mountain Range into the Mount Washington, and we got to visit the Appalachian Trail Club huts, which are on the top of these mountains that are well outfitted, and people actually stay at these AT huts and they spend their whole summertime way up on the top of these mountains. And we had some amazing hiking times. So there is this kind of legacy of expeditions that is a part of my life for, junior high and high school. And as well as that, my mother did a wild thing at one point, since we had been enjoying paddling canoes when we were staying at some of these campgrounds because we could rent a canoe. One Father's Day, my mother secretly bought a big 17-foot Grumman canoe, and she had it delivered and put on the front yard of our house. And I think it was a Father's Day or my dad's birthday. No, I think it was Father's Day. We went out to do things, and then we came back to the house. There is a canoe sitting on the front lawn. And so that canoe became an anchor for other expeditions, because my parents had gotten used to, living in a camping mode and making food and staying comfortable and, packing light and traveling. So we began to say to other folks, hey, do you want to go on an overnight canoe trip in the Pine Barrens and stay overnight? And so the one canoe that we had with a couple of other rental canoes became an expedition special joy for families and friends that we knew. And there was one spectacular canoe trip that we found out about because I had gone on a special bicycle and canoe journey, and we had paddled canoes from Narrowsburg or Barryville, New York, all the way down through the Delaware Water Gap into Pennsylvania and New Jersey. From New York State all the way into Pennsylvania and New Jersey on the Delaware River in this wonderful paddling experience. And at one point, we went up and rented canoes from Kittatinny Canoes, which I believe is probably still in business. And we had this at least one overnight, maybe two overnights, one overnight canoe trip with Dan and Eric and Susan Dougherty and our family, my sister, my mom and dad. And it was a very, very memorable experience. I can remember camping out in this beautiful field next to the Delaware River in the nighttime, just such an amazing, far away next to a river location. So my family began to be the expedition people. And so at this certain time after high school, when all of us were fixing to head in special directions, and none of us were married, and we all had various ideas going, I guess I suggested a trip to Maine, oh, that's right, Suzanne Bonin was working, I think, teaching harp in Camden, Maine. And we thought we should drive up to Maine and see Suzanne and hit some diners and do some cool stuff. So in the 1967 Ford LTD Country Squire, black with pictures of wood on the sides and an amazing red interior, we, four of us, Dan, Eric, Christine Godon, and myself. Now, I was in a happy boyfriend and girlfriend relationship with Stephanie Brown. And she wasn't available to go along on the trip, but Christine was, and we were all among the closest, friend group collegium, and it was a delight. Just the idea of hitting the road, driving to Maine, seeing Suzanne, checking out the sights, doing some interesting things, hanging out on the lobster docks, and just having a nice journey. and then coming back for the other super wonderful musical gig. The first gig was Gentle Giant, and we blew out of town after that gig and drove all the way to Maine. And then we wanted to buzz back for the second gig, which I feel like was the Grateful Dead gig. But you guys can correct me on that, and this is the beginning of the trip and trying to remember little bits and pieces and parts of it. So that's part 2, semi-intro, creating the picture of the journey. Now it's time to try to remember the stuff that happened. Here we go.